Here are the triangle trend indicators for NinjaTrader on 7/16/2012 on the ES2 Renko. The ES4 Renko just put in very, very few bars overnight, so it was not a viable alternative to trade this morning. So I went right to the 2 Renko, and I went short on this bar here, and you can see all the indicators were red and moving down at this point. And I also used the auto trend lines which come with NinjaTrader. Now I did modify them a little bit so that it leaves the last trend line on the chart. When I took the trade, this trend line was not yet in place right here. The trend lines are drawn between higher lows and lower highs, and on these swing points right here. So this was a one swing low, and this was a higher swing low. So automatically a trend line gets drawn between those 2 points. And so when the equity falls below that trend line, generally speaking, that means the sellers take control of the market, and the market goes down from there. And the same is true on the opposite side when you connect to low or high swing points. Then when that trend line is broken, generally speaking, the buyers take control of the market. However, just because you have a trend line doesn't mean it's going to be a viable trade in one particular direction or the other, and just because there is no trend line doesn't mean you don't have a viable trade in one direction or the other. So it all depends on what the indicators are showing at the time. So all this is a confirmation that it's a good idea to take a short position right in here, and this was good for 4 points, and I got out of the trade right here. When you had a failed cycle to the downside, then it failed cycle to the upside, and then it started down here again. Now the significant thing in this area is that the variable band started moving up here. Now it indicated that the equity was oversold right in through here when it crossed above the variable band. Now usually the variable band will lag a little bit behind the swing cycle, which is a leading indicator. However, it started moving up here even though the equity was still moving down. So I was very suspicious at this point. And even though the other indicators weren't showing an awful lot, there was a bit of a divergence here in the RWO between this point and this point. But in any event, I decided to get out of the trade right here for 4 points. Now here's the second trade of the morning right here. I went long on this bar, and this was where I got out of the first trade, and I got out of it intrabar right here. So you can see I squeezed about as much as possible out of this trade. And I went long here, and there was a squeeze in here, which happened to end right as I went long. There was a bit of choppiness here, a failed up cycle, failed down cycle, failed up cycle, failed down cycle, and you can see the choppiness right in through here. And then the swing cycle went up here to the extreme of its position, and turned green, and that's when I went long right in here, even though the DMI differential was still red. There were a number of green dots in here, and it was coming close to crossing above that. Other indicators were green and moving up, and even though the Bollinger Band differential oscillator was still below its zero line, indicator line had crossed above the Bollinger Bands here, and the midline had turned green right in here. So taking all that into consideration, and the fact that when it went above this trend line here, I decided to go long here. Now I got out of the trade when it hit today's open, which always is resistance when the equity is coming back up to the open. And so when it hit here and the variable band was up here, the swing cycle was crossing below it, it certainly indicated that it was overbought right in here. It looked like a good place to exit the trade, and I got out of that trade for 5-point profit. You can also see the Dix had started moving down right in through here. Now, before I forget, I wanted to mention these points that are put in here on the swing lows and swing highs. The indicator I use to do that is the zigzag UTC, it's called, and it's a free indicator. You can Google it, and you can download it. And the trend lines I put in, as I mentioned, are the auto trend lines, which I believe do come with NinjaTrader. So it was a total of 9 points in the first hour and 10 minutes of trading this morning.